straight off the bat, how did APS start? I know when it started. It started back in 91, but what was the idea behind starting APS?
What was the idea? I've come from a family of business people on my father's side. Was always that way inclined as a young person. I was already contracting even through university, just to earn extra money or so, in painting. I had my first and only job when I came back from overseas with an Australian company that had just been awarded a re-imaging of 800 service stations throughout New Zealand, and they were looking for a project manager to run that particular project. And I got that ironically because I had a tertiary education. I had a science degree, and because I had a bit of a painting background, they took me on anyway. And after 2 years, I was at that position. I'd done really well. Another fellow by the name of Peter Andrews had also joined the organisation. He was 10 years older than me. He was appointed as the New Zealand manager for that company. And anyway, we were working for Australians, and we were beating budget and so on and doing things, but it wasn't the Australian way. And Peter came from a background of running a lot of businesses. In the end, we just had a guts full. We just said, "Oh, this is not us." We'd been told what to do, even though we're exceeding what they're asking us to do. And we just saw an opportunity and left and set up APS.
Well, so now I know where the Andrews part comes from, because I was always curious about where the Andrews part comes from, because it's not your name.
So in '91 there was no internet, and so everything was alphabetical.
Started the phone book.
We did toss a coin.
Yeah,
he did win it legitimately.
Yeah.
But we went with Andrews anyway because and then that's also where the APS came from. Again, to put us at the start of the alphabet as well.
Yeah, nice. You started the yellow pages back then. That was a big thing. Now we just sort of laugh at that and go, we're stuck with these A names, a bit like us as well. So when you started off, there was two of you, and then it sounded like you grew pretty quickly, off the back of the early success there. Anyway.
Yeah, so it was August '81. We kicked the business off in July that same year. We met in a pub, and we and this is true. We actually wrote our first budget on the back of a envelope in the pub after a few beers about how we could do things.
Did you say 81 or 91?
91. Yeah, July '91. Yeah, and then a month later we started. The University of Auckland was our first client. Still our one of our main clients today. And there was just me and Pete, and for the first few months I was doing all the work and then we got one painter on board, and then by that summer the deferred maintenance was coming through for schools. We managed to secure quite a bit of work through some consultants in the school side, and we had 40 odd painters within 6 months.
Wow. That's hell of a growth, eh? And were you sort of going, oh shit, how do we manage all this growth? Were you just
being young and foolish and doing 18-hour days, 6 days a week for 3 years, it was pretty intense. I don't know if I could do it now, but back then, I was young, and both of us, fortunately, were in positions of being financially able to sustain ourselves, so we didn't take any money out of the business either.
Right.
So Peter had other income, and so did I, with some rental property. So that sustained us through that period to grow the business.
Yeah, it's always useful, but it didn't sort of, I guess you were still ambitious. Some people, if they've got another income stream, they might just be like, oh, I won't push it as hard. But you guys obviously, decided to push it bloody hard. Yeah. Yeah.
So and all the money we did took back into the company to grow up. Because as you know, if you're going to grow a business, it's got to have cash to do that, and it was all used up.
Yeah. So when you wrote that first budget on the back of the envelope in the pub, did you ever think it'd morph into what it turned into today? Are you one of these guys that said, yep, we've got a plan, we're going to hit it? Or did it just sort of organically grow?
I always saw APS as doing really well. Did I see the APS today in my mind? No. But sort of. Like I could see that we were going to be successful, especially after the first year. We knew we were going to be successful. We already were. But a lot of opportunities have arisen over that time. It's been 31 years now, so things happen and change. And I mean, the GFC caused a shift for us. Peter, after 10 years, wanted to leave, so buying him out was another big change. So these things you don't really plan for, and when they happen, it just. The one thing is, I've always stayed true to the values of the business and what I am and how I see it, and haven't really detoured too much from that. So,
and of those values, sort of, were they your foundation values, or have they sort of changed and evolved over the years with the company?
No, they'd be there the whole time. Yeah. I mean, just good work ethic and being honest and fair, and sticking to our knitting. There's a few times that we have deviated a little bit into outside of that. It's always not gone well.
That must be interesting, because you guys cover a lot of ground with your maintenance anyway, and all the different departments and things. Like, what did you get into that was not quite in your lane then?
Insurance reinstatement was one that we did back in the early 90s. We did that for 4 years. But on the silver lining that came out of that was that it forced us into really expanding our breadth of service. So we were basically a painting contracting company to start with. And focusing on repaint, so existing properties and buildings. So that then opened us up to, repairs need to be done, and waterproofing and roofing and so on. In those early days, there was a lot of subcontracting going on, where we just basically stuck to the painting. But once we got into the insurance reinstatement, that opens you up to everything, like fires, floods, and right down from replacing kitchen benches to full repaints and replacement of this and that. It opens you to all the trades. It's a pretty intense industry. High admin. A lot of poor payments, with the retentions and so on not being paid. And, it ended up being 15% of our turnover and 90% of our admin.
Right. Yeah.
But we shut that down after 4 years, and within 6 months, we pretty much regained the income that we lost, but also got a lot stronger in our other trades, and that really pushed us into the building repairs side. The GFC was interesting because prior to that, we were big on the reclads. We were one of the first companies to do it. Again, 2000, 2001, we're painting all these buildings and they're leaking, and the solution back then was, just seal them up, seal and paint, waterproof coatings, all that sort of thing. But then you got a bit deeper, and as the problem got worse, we were finding things, actually we need to do more of this and that. And then some more consultants started to come on board at that stage in 2002. And so we started working with them because we were in that market. And then we were the first to start working with engineers and the like about opening up buildings and putting in cavities and stuff, all before it was all regulated and changed.
It's a bloody big industry now, that remediation and reclad industry.
Well, it was big right up to the GFC, and no one was really interested in it because it was like, who wants to do that? But then when the GFC came, the building industry ground to a halt, and the reclad business was still going strong, and so every man and his dog tipped. Literally, within 9 months, it became a profitable part of our business to less than cost. So we basically bailed out of it.
I remember that happening, because everyone went from doing construction, and no one wanted to do maintenance. And then when the construction thing shit itself, everyone wanted to do maintenance, and they all sort of, handyman became like, a lot more expensive than they used to be, and it kind of changed. Do you think that that's going to happen again anytime soon?
If there's a downturn in the commercial construction industry, then they'll start diving back into the maintenance market. Yeah. I mean, maintenance is happening in and out, and councils, all those schools, all that stuff. Boom or bust, those things are still happening. So that's when it gets tough for us, is that we have more competition in a tighter market. Right. But right now it seems to be okay. I mean, there are some signs, but it's still okay.
When you said you did a science degree, did you have a fascination with science previously, and how did you think that that's helped your business career?
Yeah, I've always been big on science in terms of that's how my brain's wired. I look at things. I believe in science. I look at problems with a more scientific approach.
As opposed to magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I don't know, it's I was good at it at school. You know, when you're young, you don't know really what you want to do. I mean, I wanted to be a crop duster.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And then they said, well, you got to go to the Air Force to be one of those. So, and then I almost got into that, and I didn't like the yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full. So I thought, I can't do that. So, and then I tried engineering with Fletcher's, and I almost got through on that. That would have been a whole different pathway if that had happened. But I failed on the last hurdle with them. And we had a farm. We had a horticultural export strawberry farm. So I'll just go do horticulture down at Massey. A couple of people I know are going down there. And it was just like the decision out of the blue, and then just went down there. It was a good degree actually, because it was the Hort side degree is a connection between the engineers and the scientists and so on, and the farmers and the growers, and we had to learn to quite a high level both sides. So we had quite a high practical learning with the degree, and then also, you know, a high learning on the engineering and scientific side. So you know, biochemistry we were doing to level 2, engineering we were doing to level 3, and then right down to also economics and management, and even how to do a radio interview, writing newspaper articles. So it was quite a really broad brush degree. And people say, oh, did you use it? Yeah, I actually used it quite a lot.
Probably more than you know, more than you realise.
And because my dad was in the building industry and working in the maintenance side, working with him as a young person and then all through university, and when I came back from overseas just for a brief period, I was exposed in that. And New Zealand was in a recession in '88, severe one, and every job going in the industry that I trained for, there was like hundreds of applicants. So when I decided to apply in the building industry, the first one I applied for actually got, which was that Australian company. And that's really just took me down the path of exposing me to the maintenance world, and just went from there.
And they liked you because you had a degree. A degree means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and some people see it as like the qualification, but then some people see it as the ability to stick at something for a long period of time, or follow a process or whatever.
Well, I think for them, they just, for whatever reason, the Australian company had made a decision that they were only going to look at tertiary applicants for certain roles, and tertiary educated applicants, and I just happened to be there at that time. So, but the fact that I had a practical background as well probably was what got me the job. Anyway, I did get the job, and I did really well, and it taught me a lot. Doing 800 service stations around New Zealand is... a service station has everything from health and safety to two-pack painting to repairs to you're dealing with canopies and pumps and tanks in the ground and a whole lot, plus managing teams to go around the whole. It was a huge learning curve, but it put me in good stead to set up APS.
Yeah, I wonder if the first service station was as good as the last one. You get pretty good at things over 800 times, I guess. Can you remember the first one you did and then the last one?
Oh, I had to work with a guy that was really experienced for the first 4 months.
Yeah.
And he was an old English guy that had set the contract up actually, but he was really experienced. But he was one of those guys that was really slow and perfectionist, and it just about drew me nuts. I was like, fuck, just let me do this. How many times do you have to keep showing me? Yeah. But
800.
Looking back, it was the best training I ever had, because as frustrated as I was, it did put me in a good mindset to then tackle things and do things properly. And he was there the whole time in the background every time I needed assistance. But towards it, like you said, at the beginning I used him a lot, and then I didn't use him at all.
So have you become that guy now?
I'm. As my general manager says, you got a platoon, and you got the guys at the front of the platoon that are like charging ahead, and they're all and then you got the guys at the back of the platoon that are helping the ones that are not at the back to try and get through. I'm probably more of a front of the platoon type guy, whereas I'm not really a back of the platoon guy. So, but I have got people that I've employed that are.
Yeah, that's the one. You got to have those.
Yeah.
So how did you guys go through COVID? Because I know it was a pretty tough time for a lot of businesses out there. We managed to get through as an essential service, and I think, Christ, I don't know what life would have been like if we didn't. It'd be pretty bloody difficult right now. But how did APS go throughout the time? And were you part of that essential workforce at the time?
Yeah, it was tough. The first lockdown, people were freaking out and not knowing what. So our focus was just to reassure everyone. We had that. I don't know if you remember. We had that 2.5 day period. Everyone had to get ready.
Yeah,
they announced it, and we only had 2.5 days, and then everyone had to go into lockdown. First time, what's this going to be like? And everyone's going, we're going to get paid. So we just spent all our time bringing every member of the team, tradies, even the subcontractors, all in, and we'd explain to them, this is what's happening. This is how you're going to get paid, and just reassured everyone that's all going to be okay, and just putting people's mind at ease, because there was a lot of people freaking out, and we did that really well. I mean, and I just remember at the time there's other people that were working for other organisations that are just going, we haven't been told anything, and I don't even know we're going to get paid next week, and it was all that sort of nonsense going on. But we really focused on making sure that didn't happen and people were okay. The essential stuff, yes, we said that we could be essential workers, but only for things like emergencies. So like if there was a burglary or a break-in that was causing the building to be possible fire risk, or then we could come in and do some repairs. We literally had about 2% of our turnover in that period.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it was pretty dire. We had a ton of work on our plate at that time, so it was like a big pause, and then when we did come out, we took off again, and then that first lockdown, there was quite a lot of work actually, and it was pretty okay other than that 5 weeks or 6 weeks. But the second one, that was a lot worse, and financially it was a big kick, but I think looking back, I think the biggest impact was to the people, especially people that had little kids. Everyone had different experience. I mean, I'm fortunate, I live on a big lifestyle property, so I've got a tennis court and a swimming pool, and it's 50 acres of park. It's not exactly a hardship in the lockdown.
Keep yourself occupied.
But if you're stuck in an apartment or a little 3-bedroom house with 3 screaming kids, can be a little bit more different for you, and or if you're on your own. So everyone had different. Some people liked it, some people hated it, some people got depressed with it. The biggest impact I noticed was the effect that it had on people. It certainly wound a lot of people up. By the end of last year, I think people, especially in the holiday break, you could sense that people were, or a lot of people anyway, were pretty angry, upset. Their life had been tipped up a bit. And it was unsettling. They were unsettled.
Oh yeah, their life had been tipped upside down for nothing that they didn't have any control over it. They're being told to do things that they'd never done before, and like I said, I can't imagine how life would have been if we didn't get through, like we did. But
the senior team, I think, did a fantastic job. There was a lot of stress. Both those lockdowns. There was, if you're a worker and you just go home and you just do your thing, there's nothing you can contribute or do until you're asked to come back. But the senior management team had to do a lot, and I've got a really good senior management team. But they were working their ass off to just plan, keep people reassured, constantly updating the COVID protocols, and just it was intense. So at the end of both those years, I and the senior team were pretty drained. I remember going into both holiday breaks at the end of both of those years feeling completely exhausted, and my senior team was like that. But it's just what we had to do.
Much like the insurance thing you were talking about before, there's a lot of admin, right? A lot of admin and not a hell of a lot of income for it. It was. That's what we found, and you're right about having that uncertainty around. You make one plan, then you get some different information. You got to change that plan, and you're constantly juggling things, and it did become pretty tiring because you never knew where you were going to end up, or if you're going to get the old rug pulled out again. And I think But now, I think now is probably a bit of a harder time too, coming out of the COVID era and that with trying to find bloody staff. I mean,
of the 3 years, this is the toughest.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
This has been the toughest, cash flow wise, staff, supplies, everything. It's just there's like a mountain of hurdles now in front of you. Whereas the first year was a bit of a novelty and interesting, and it was, well, like I said, was like a pause and then continue. Second year, that did a lot of financial damage, that second lockdown, and now we're paying for all that disruption, and the economy's in turmoil and inflation and supply restraints, immigration issues, all that.
So is there anything in particular that you just rattled off that list pretty quickly? Like, is there anything in particular there that's you guys are like mostly affected by?
Yeah, people.
Yeah.
Yes, we're a service industry and provider, and our the thing we sell is hours, man hours. Yeah, so it's people. So getting staff, retaining staff. We've had to pay a lot more to keep people, but it's what you got to do.
Yeah, it's definitely in their court at the moment. I guess to get off that bloody subject of COVID, because it does get a bit depressing. I'll talk about some cool stuff, and I know you guys got a lot of really cool stuff going on in behind the scenes of APS. There's three things that I see on your website that kind of look like they're ingrained in your cultural DNA of your business. The environmental side of things is a big one, health and safety, and then the community. You guys do a lot of work in the community. So if we can start off with the environmental thing, because I know it's one of your big passions, the tree planting especially, but then you've got that, it's Toitu, is that how you pronounce it? The carbon zero emissions side of things. That's like an initiative that you guys are absolutely thrashing at the moment, because you're well beyond carbon neutral, you're bloody carbon positive. Yes, have a chat about that. It's interesting. How did it start? Like, where did you sort of get that first interest from?
The first interest was when I was at uni in the 80s, and we were already talking about this stuff back then, and particularly in my degree being horticulture and plant-based, and about sustainable agricultural and all that sort of stuff. So I've always had that sort of kickstart back from there. I was raised on a farm too, so I've always been keen about outside and really passionate about New Zealand. I love the outdoors of New Zealand. I'm proud of the country. I'm proud of the lifestyle that we have, and compared to overseas, I've travelled a bit. So
you've seen it.
Yeah. So probably in the early 2000s, I was thinking, what can I do to really make it better for APS in terms of as an add-on. And I started seriously looking at a conservation property back in the about 2005, I think it was 2006. I started seriously looking for a big conservation property in the Coromandel. And I wanted to buy like a big bush block to look at, because it was 2007, the ETS thing had just come out, and I thought, maybe that would be a good thing to do for APS. We'll buy a big bush block and we can look at the carbon credits and see if we can offset the company back then, but more importantly, provide a facility for the staff to go camping and
it's cool.
stuff. Yeah. And then the GFC hit, and that sort of put a handbrake on it, and the focus was elsewhere for a while. And then a few years after GST recovery, we started seriously looking at it again. But by then, the company had grown, and we'd also now had skiing and hunting and all that sort of stuff in there. So by throwing in the skiing, it really sort of made it think, Central North Island's probably the place we need to look. So that's when we decided, and we found a property down there, and with the intention of many things. First and foremost, a facility for APS, which we could combine for training and making it a nice place to be for learning things within the company, and then maybe we could expand it to some of our school clients to take kids there. And then the environmental benefit. So then that's when I already had forestry block and a couple other conservation properties. So when we threw Raremu in it, that put us in a position where, on our first go at Toitu, we were carbon zero straight away, and then when Raremu got added in a year later, that's when we went in the path of becoming positive.
So you'd already been sort of practicing what you were preaching, but once you started it, you were already at the finish line pretty much by the sound.
Yeah. So I already had a forestry block down the line, and the property in Clevedon we developed. planted, by that time we'd planted 140,000 plants on that property. And then I had another conservation, like a nice bush block in the Coromandel as well. Again, for all those environmental reasons, it's why we like that sort of stuff. And yeah, it was just really, it wasn't hard to sort of, well, let's connect that to APS. And then, like I said, with providing a facility for the staff, then the Raruma block was the next best thing, and it's gone from there.
So you get a lot of use out of staff and go down there quite a bit and enjoy that?
Yeah, at this point, it's most weekends it's booked up, and earlier this year we had a week-long session where we broke the company up into groups of 15, and we took them down there. To introduce them to the property, because some people haven't been there yet, and it's a lot of things, until they go there and see what it's like, they didn't really know what it was like, and that has greatly encouraged more people to go, haven't experienced that. We also did on that week a talk about the environmental impacts that are occurring, and climate change and all that sort of stuff, and then what we're trying to do about it, and how we're using these properties to do that, and then as well, we just had a good fun time there. And so it's probably one of the best things I've done at APS. Actually, one of the best activities we've done. It was hard work, because we had to do. There was 4 or 5 of us that had to do every day another group, repeat. But by the end of it, we were getting a bit over it. But no, it was really fun and exciting, and it was just good to see the reaction from everyone, and there was a lot of talk about it after that, and so I that's really invigorated a lot more people. You're not going to get everyone, not everyone's on board with it, but it certainly increased the amount of people that are interested.
It's a pretty special thing to do for your company to be able to have a piece of land that is for the company and for the people that are part of the company. I don't know anyone else that's doing that. That's a pretty awesome thing to be doing, and it must sort of filter through, and people have that, it helps the pride and that in the company and the brand and stuff. Yeah,
well, 31 years, it's a big part of me, and it can only be as good with the people that are in it. And I work there all the time. I want the place to be a good place to work, and I really like. I mean, I'm okay. I'm financially secure. What do I do now is, well, I want to provide opportunities for everyone, and make their lives as good as possible. So this is just one part that we can do, is to make APS a nice place to work at. And I mean, like I said about New Zealand, I think there's a big disconnect between urban and rural New Zealand now. When we were kids growing up, and I'm a boomer, like in the 70s, everyone knew someone that had a farm. Half the kids at school went and stayed on farms. That's become a lot less, and there's kids now in the city that haven't even seen a cow or a sheep,
so they don't know where the milk comes from.
And New Zealand is an agricultural country. It's like, that's what we are, and that's our roots, and it's the backbone of this place. And I think that connection needs to be encouraged, and so I get a big kick out of seeing families and young kids enjoying the place, and you getting to experience the outdoors, and when we want to push it further, we want to hopefully purchase there's a smaller farm across the road, which will make ours viable to run it commercially, and then we can start getting kids coming down and helping out, like doing things like shearing and mustering and all that sort of stuff, and just doing farm life stuff, running with the dogs and doing all that thing. So, and as well as the hunting and all the other stuff that they can do down there.
Sounds like you might even be setting up a bit of a learning institution down there.
Yeah, well, we what do we call it? A school of DK's ex-army. My general manager, he's ex-army. He's got all these. What do you call it? Pardon? Yeah. And he's got a soul. I think it's a school of learning, but it's he's called it the soul thing. And so we want to families and kids, but also we're going to start taking team leaders down there for leadership training, and then the trade teams down there just for bonding and things. So there's a lot of things that we can do that really enhance working at APS and making it, and also exposing them to the environment. And you live in the city all the time, and it's like you can disconnect from
for sure
from it all.
the old concrete jungle.
Mm.
So how many trees have you planted? Right, do you think over the years?
A few hundred thousand.
Okay. And so what do you guys do on a day-to-day basis? Like, what are you counting the carbon? How are you measuring the carbon that APS gives off? Whatever you call it.
That's quite involved. So that's the Toidu thing. So what they do is they come in. It's actually an interesting exercise, and it pays for itself. You have to do we had one person spend 6 months going through all of our accounts and from the previous year. So you got to use your last full year, do a full analysis on what you do in terms of fuel, waste, all that sort of thing. It right down to how many reams of paper you use and so on. Once and your electricity use and stuff. Once you've got that, then they can calculate off that with their tables what your CO2 emissions are.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, in our case, because we had these properties, we can now work out what plants we've got on a hectare basis, on what age they are and what type they are, and then tables on that side will tell you how much carbon those plants of that age and type sequester. Got emissions here, sequestration here. The difference is where you sit.
Yep.
So on our first hit without Raremu, we pretty much even matched. So do you understand how they do the calculation? So it's on your responsibility. So a good example is a paint can. The making of the tin, so the mining of the ore the responsibility of that activity falls with the mine. The making of the can falls with the can industry or the steel manufacturing plant. The putting the paint and making the paint, putting the paint in falls with the paint manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
As a contractor, the things that I have control over is what I'm responsible for. So purchasing the can, taking it to the site, putting it on the scaffold, giving it to the guy, putting it on the building, then the waste that comes off from that and taking to dump. All of those things are under my control. So those are my responsibility. So our carbon is measured on what we're responsible for. So in our industry, being a service industry and maintenance, fuel and waste are our biggest ones.
Right.
So fuel was 2/3 nearly of our emissions. Waste was nearly 1/3, and then we've got a small residual for office stuff and electricity and stuff like that.
So do you actually make a conscious effort to reduce, like, say, your fuel bill or your consumption, or do you just plant more trees? Like, because you could I guess you could do it in two ways, really. You can actually go, well, we'll pull back on that and leave your trees as they are, or you can just keep growing like that, couldn't you?
So that's our model is along those lines. So you can argue, some people argue that's probably not the best way to do it, but I look at the overall picture. Like, carbon is an overall thing. It's not like a little bit here and there. It's in everyone's sky. So I could spend $1 million improving my car fleet and get a 5% benefit, or I can spend $1 million on buying some marginal land and planting trees. I can get 10 times the effect.
Yeah.
So you go, well, which one should I do? But we need to do both. And Toitu's is really big on trying to get companies on board to improve their carbon emissions, and we're doing that. And once you've got the calculation, we have committed to we want to do 5%, 7% improvements here and there. And then if you don't have your own property or it's a question in hand, then once you know what your credits are, you pay from someone else to balance yourself out. We've done it where we're doing that within our organisation. We're not seeking our own credits.
Yeah, right.
We're doing them ourselves.
Yeah.
My emphasis has been more on a sequestration side, but I haven't turned my back on reducing the emissions as well.
Yeah.
The problem for us being fuel is our biggest one. We're in the commercial industry. There's not a big market, or there's not a lot of options for electric and hybrid commercial vehicles. Still, petrol and diesel are the predominantly main vehicle, and then the few that are there are very expensive.
So you're not going to roll out and buy a Cybertruck anytime soon?
So we know that technology is coming.
Yeah.
So we've taken the approach that we will maintain our fleet, but we'll replace them with suitable vehicles when we can and when they become available. But it's probably we're just going to run our current old diesels and petrols into the ground, and within the next 5 years or so we should be able to have a lot more hybrids and possibly electric commercial vehicles available that will be cost effective to purchase and
Yeah.
replace them. I mean, if you look at the carbon embodiment thing, it's quite a green solution to keep a vehicle running, because if you buy a new one, there's a carbon embodiment to make that new ute as well. Whereas this that's already happened. So yeah, there's an argument to say you should keep things longer and maintain them and try and sustain them. E-Road's been really successful, so we brought that in, and that's reduced our fuel use.
Was it a tracker?
Yeah, so E-Road, it's like monitors your speed and braking and harsh accelerating, idling, all that sort of stuff. We brought it in as a health and safety initiative because when we checked all of our accidents, the most common thing, the most dangerous activity we had was our vehicles, people getting injuries in car accidents. So we brought E-Road in on a health and safety initiative, but the spin-off from that has been quite a substantial environmental benefit because our fuel use has gone down substantially. Tyre wear, the wear and tear on the vehicles, because everyone gets graded.
If you're a hard breaker or not.
Yeah, and so if you're in the red zone, then every month you get hauled in and you have to explain yourself to the general manager.
Yeah.
And if you're up for a wage or salary increase, you can't get it until you're out of the red zone. So it's encouraged. We did it with the trade 2.5 years ago, and there's a lot of moaning and groaning carrying on, but within a few months everyone got used to it, and their performance changed dramatically.
Yeah.
So in the last year we did it with our management team, same thing, a lot of moaning and groaning carrying on, but they all got used to it in the end.
Yeah.
And we only have like maybe 1 or 2 in the red zone now, whereas when we first started, more than half of the people were driving badly.
See, and they'll carry that over into their personal life too. Like when they go home and drive their own car, they'll probably treat it a bit better than they may have when they treat the company car.
Yeah,
You'd hope so.
Yeah, well, company cars are quite amazing actually. You can run them without oil, you can drive them in the sea. I mean, they're pretty, like hire cars,
Yeah. Just like a hire car. Off the back of health and safety, I know you guys do a lot of good work in that space. I think some members of the team over the years have been to your facility and you've got people hanging from the rafters and all sorts of stuff, and you do a lot around abseiling and work at height. That's clearly a big message that you pass on to your clients too. I've seen it in your quotes and in your literature and stuff. You think that's obviously a pretty important message to be passing on to your clients around that you are a health and safety conscious work environment.
Well, of all the things, that's the most important one. Like I said at the start, we are a people business. That's what we are. So getting injured is not good. I don't want anyone to be injured. I mean, I don't want anyone to have to. I don't want anyone in my organisation to have to ring someone saying, "Hey, such and such is injured or worse."
Yep.
Back in the 2003, David Karam came on board as my general manager, and ex-army, very processed, and he got quite involved with the whole height abseil thing, and quickly saw that there's issues here. And that really drove us down the road of really upping our game on improving our health and safety. We were well ahead of the pack at that stage, and it wasn't until what's interesting. A lot of people were just giving a lip service or saying, "Yeah, we do this," and filling that form, but their culture back in the organisation was still as what their dad did and so on. When it got regulated, it all changed, and to now. Probably most of the industry is pretty much caught up. We like to think that we're still staying ahead and trying to keep improving in that area. But yeah, the health and safety from the 1990s to today is chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
I mean, I can give you examples of serious accidents that happened in the 90s, and Osh would turn up and sign a form and that would be it. And the guy's smashed both ankles and he's crippled for the rest of his life. That was as far as it went. It was his fault. Don't worry about it. Whereas now it's just it's just a completely different game. And,
that's how it should be.
We've Eddie and Gotti start with us just recently. He's our health and safety manager, and that's again, we thought we were good, and he's come in and he's shown straight away that there's a lot of weaknesses still to sort. So that's our next step of just continuing to keep staying ahead and improving all the time. But of all the things, I mean, I would hold health and safety higher than environment and in terms of our initiatives. But it's very important. And I challenge any contractor in our industry to be doing the training and level of training that we do throughout the year. Have you heard of our big training day? You might have seen the video on the website.
I think I've been to one in the past.
That's a big deal for us. COVID knocked it around. We couldn't do two of them as thoroughly as we have in the past. So this year we finally did one. Again, we couldn't get the clients to come because a lot of clients come over. Again, it was a bit of a COVID issue at that time, but we still managed to pull off and it was well needed, because even though we were doing small training sessions in the previous 2 years, having that big annual one that we normally would have, it was needed, because over a 2 year period, bad habits had started to slip in, and the COVID focus, so on. So, this year was a bit of a wake up, and bringing Ian on has certainly woken us up to some of our deficiencies, which we thought we were really good at. But you got to keep improving in that area. Yeah,
it's got to be front of mind, eh? It's got to be that thing that the staff think of all the time.
You only have to see examples now of where the accident occurs and just the damage it does to that business, let alone the family that's affected. Yeah. So you want to avoid that.
I think it is something that a lot of people pay lip service to, like you said. But you also mentioned that you've got a new health and safety manager coming in. And I think that's also I know it's tough out there employing people at the moment, but there's still an opportunity out there to be improving your workforce and improving your team. And quite often, we've found over the last 2 years, every time someone's left, we've got someone that's better. Every time, and slowly your team just keeps getting better and better. It's not like there's I don't know, maybe it's in certain industries, but we've just found that our quality of person has improved over the last couple of years, which is great. When some people are going, I can't find anyone to do these bloody jobs, So like what you said there about your health and safety officer, that's a good point. Yeah. And then finally, just on those three things, the community side of things. So you do work in your local community, but you also talk about your staff, your team as a community, then your actual wider community being like where people live, and then you mentioned global as well. How did you decide to break it down into those three areas?
Well, we were sort of doing that anyway, and then we talked about how we can sort of promote this or let people become involved, or also within APS as well as outside. That's when we came up, actually there's three communities. There's the APS community, the local community, and the international community. Of the three, obviously the APS community is the most important to us because it's our people. And so what we do there is obviously the training and all that stuff, but we offer a outward bound experience for their kids. We offer a year 13 scholarship for a university for one person in the APS children. And then there's other things that we do all throughout, including now the Raremu thing, and so offering that service. They get birthday things, but there's a lot of stuff that we do to support APS people, let alone the cadets and the apprentices and so on. We also really want to encourage the labourer to manager pathway within APS, and that's been very successful. I think the last 19 or 20 odd appointments within APS have been through the trades, which is really good. Wow. We still get some outsiders, and you do need that. You need to have some outside input, but probably the majority of our appointments are within APS. The local community is aligned with our clients as well. We used to have a bit of a scattergun thing where we used to support a whole lot of things, and that was a bit messy. So we thought, let's tidy all that up, and we got actively involved with Painga, which is a South Auckland initiative that are looking after some really disadvantaged primary schools in South Auckland. So we got behind supporting them and giving them vans and so on that they could do things that they're doing. So that's quite an important thing for us. And there's other things we've done with other schools, like another school we provide money for a school camp, so kids can go to school camp, and there's other things in that area. And then on the international side, I've always been involved with child fund, so we've done that for years, and helped build schoolhouses and water tanks and put bores in and all that stuff all around the world, as well as looking after you have those kids, your own kids. Refugee, so we were pretty big on that. It's died off a little bit with the COVID and everything, but we had refugees coming through one or two at a time, working within the warehouse with our warehouse guy, and then moving, exposing to the trades, and then hopefully they push into going into those areas. That's been quite successful. When we've had reasonable success. We've actually about 3 people that are still within APS that came from that pathway. It was actually interesting to see the acceptance within APS too, within the trade guys with these people. That was quite nice. I mean, we got 28 nationalities in our business.
Jesus, wow.
So Auckland's a melting pot, and so 28 different countries.
Wow.
So it's like the United Nations.
It is a bit, and I see that you've got all their flags up as well, eh?
We put some flags up the front, so when we have a celebration, we'll put all the nationalities, hang them up on the flag. So 28 of them is quite a lot.
That's a shitload. I thought we had a lot. We had 14 at one stage, but yeah, 28. It's a shitload. Do you ever go about seeking like how you can measure a return on that? Because sometimes with sponsorship and that sort of thing, or these things that you donate to, some people get caught up on, well, what's in it for me? Do you ever do that, or are you guys just like, we're passionate about this, we're giving, and we don't give a stuff what we get back?
Don't know if we don't give a stuff what we get back, but generally that's how it works anyway. I mean, we want to, when the schools that we're aligned with, we're supporting that, we certainly get more opportunities to do projects, but we're still in a tendering environment, and do we get favouritism? I imagine to some point, I imagine, but like the environment, there's no real financial benefit. The environment thing is quite a good case. We've not won a job to date based on the fact that we're carbon positive or carbon zero. We may have got some extra points if we were equal with someone else, but I do not recall of a single job that we've won since 2018 when we started down that road where we got it because we want to work with you guys because you're carbon zero. Same goes with the community initiatives. You're dealing with different board of trustees all the time on schools. There are some benefits, but it's the right thing to do. So you just do it. We're in a position where we can do it, so we want to do it.
Yeah. No, that's the way to go. You're doing it because you want to, rather than because you think it's going to get you some.
I don't take the sort of Donald Trump attitude that what's in it for me every time. It's like, yeah.
No, just do it because you're a good human, good company. I guess just to wrap it up, because we've covered a lot of ground. It's been bloody informative. I've learned quite a lot just sitting across the table from you today. It's been good. What do you think you're most proud of over your business career with APS?
Most proud. It'd have to be the people that are in there. You said before, people get better and better over your replacements. I'm proud of the company. I'm proud of all the people there. I'm really proud of seeing that someone come through the ranks. I think that's pretty cool. And just how people banded together and supported each other in the COVID crisis, and I'd say I'm proud of APS in terms of what we've achieved, but I'm most proud of the people that we have there today.
Yeah, good answer. It's all about the people, eh? Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have businesses if it wasn't for the good people and stuff. And yeah, I think we all owe a lot to our teams of people, and people that have come and gone over the years, but especially the people that are with you now. I totally concur with that. Thanks for your time, man. I know you're a busy man, and actually got Sarah waiting over here. She's probably thinking, shit, that went on longer than I thought it was going to. But yeah, really appreciate your time, getting your thoughts on your business journey, and your company and the things that you're right into, and it's been cool just to sit here and listen and appreciate what you guys do for our industry. You've got maintenance jobs and contracts at quite a few of the buildings that we manage. So let's keep doing that sort of business, and all the best to you guys and your team.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for all your opportunities.
Yeah, cheers, mate. No worries.